we're going to be giving you some tips on how to keep your home warm. Now, this is after the Met Office has warned that February is expected to be the coldest it's ever been for a very long time, with returns of temperatures as cold as minus 11 degrees Celsius. So they're expecting snow from next week and also more storms to hit the UK. Don't blame me, this is the Met Office speaking. Jo, it feels like a perfect time to actually have a conversation about things that you could do around the house to just make sure that you're being as efficient with your heat as possible.
Yeah.
So
yeah, absolutely.
Where shall we start? Drafts.
Drafts, yeah. Actually, while we're talking about water, a lot of people's pipes freeze in the winter, and that can really be quite costly.
Okay.
So make sure you get those pipe insulation. It's called pipe lagging, and it's just a little blanket for your pipes. So while we were just on the subject of water,
And for exterior pipes or even interior pipes?
both, whatever's really close. So you might have pipes in a basement, for example, running
Pipes in a basement, in a loft.
But certainly exterior pipes, absolutely get those lagged. And if it's really cold, keep them on to have a tiny little drip, because moving water is harder to freeze.
Okay.
So just while we were talking about water as a side point. But yeah, moving on to drafts, we can lose £120 a year through our badly insulated homes. And it's really easy for us to make some really cheap, cost-effective solutions to fix all the heat that we're losing out of our properties.
Spotting them.
Spotting them is hard. Yeah.
How do we go around spotting
them? So first
them?
of all, mainly, let's talk about kind of doors and windows.
Yeah.
So doors and windows can be very drafty. To spot if you've got a draft coming through, look around your windows and see if there's light coming in. If there's light coming in, then there's air going out. The other thing that you can do is you can take a candle and very carefully just move it around.
It's all very
the window
Dickensian,
seal.
this.
Yes, absolutely. With the
your
lights off.
candle. So if
Where
the
it's
flame
flickering,
if it flickers,
that means the air's coming out, your hot air is going out and your cold air is coming in.
Right.
So you want to eliminate those drafts as much as you possibly can, and we've got some really, really easy, cheap, cost-effective things that you can do.
Okay,
First thing
you've
is
brought some things with us.
this, which I made earlier, this lovely-looking sausage thing. This is a draft excluder.
Well, you've made this one.
I made that. Yeah, pair of used tights.
They're my tights. Actually, can I have them back?
Thank you. You've only got one leg now.
No,
Christo's tights.
And I filled that with a bag of rice.
Okay. So you basically take that and fill it with a bag of rice. That's
or
it.
anything, newspaper, old textiles, anything that you've got to make those tights into a sausage shape that you can put in front of your door or your windows to block those drafts from coming in.
Okay.
You can also invest in draft-proof tape, and this comes in a number of different forms. It's always relatively cost-effective to buy. So a roll like this might cost you £4, £2 or £3. This is foam tape and it's self-adhesive. So you want to clean your window frames or your door frames, and then you just cut this to size with a pair of scissors and stick it on. It's really super simple to use, and anybody can do this, and it will mean that the seals in your doors and windows are nice and tight.
So I can see, like, for a sash window, you want to put that at the... Would you put it on the moving part, or would you put it on
Put it on both.
On the both?
On a moving sash window, because obviously they go up and down, I would suggest investing a little bit more money and getting a brush strip and something that has a better adhesive. But as long as you've cleaned the window seal where you're going to put your strips and let it dry, then the adhesive should stick.
OK. Now, there are other simple things that we are going to talk about as well. I know this is an oldie, but it's a goodie. Radiators, making sure that they work efficiently. What are we doing wrong with the radiators?
Well, we should all have something called a TRV on our radiators, which is a thermostatic radiator valve. And that will allow you to control the temperature in each individual room. So your older radiators might not have those. They are very easy to install. The other thing that you should do on a regular basis is you should be bleeding your radiators to ensure that the amount of water that is running through them is running through them efficiently, and therefore they've got good heat output. But actually a really simple trick is to make the radiators work better for you. We all have limited space, and we put all of our furniture up against the walls and against our radiators. So you might have a bookcase or a sofa.
A sofa up against the radiator, so you're just heating
the
sofa.
Yeah, exactly. So really, you just need to pull those away from the radiator a little bit to allow that airflow. OK, now you've sent us a little video that we're going to show now. Yes.
Talk us through it. So what are you doing here?
So this is a really simple trick. You can buy these reflective sheets to put behind your radiator to allow the radiator to reflect the heat back into the room rather than it being soaked into the wall. So you can buy these reflective sheets from hardware stores, and they are basically just a foam sheet or a card sheet with...
So is it a sheet with foil on it?
I've made my own in this video.
Oh, you're making your own?
A cardboard box with tin foil, cardboard box which I had already from a delivery, wrapped it with tin foil, and just slipped that behind my radiator. This cost pence to make. This was stuff that I already had at home.
You're the gift that keeps on giving.
I do try.
This is brilliant.
And so if you put that, a reflective sheet behind your radiator, then it's going to send the heat back out into the room rather than being soaked up by the wall.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. I love that.
Don't use used foil, though. Make sure you've got me cooking.
Otherwise it's going to be
a little bit with a Sunday dinner, sort of smelling
Wipe off the gravy.
smelling through the house. Christo, you've got plenty of questions. I know that when we said we're going to do DIY, you're like, I've got loads of questions.
I have, because I live in an old Victorian house. Now, that's difficult to insulate, isn't it? I presume, because what do you do when you've got old walls that many Victorian houses do?
Yeah, I've lived in many Victorian houses, and I guess the best thing that I did was I wore more clothes. And I think that is one of the things that we could all
Say
do.
that to my partner all the time, put on a jumper.
Exactly, and wear slippers. But you're right, Victorian houses are very, very drafty and very hard to insulate, because you can't invest in something like cavity wall insulation. If you build in solid wall insulation, then you're reducing the size of the rooms. So the thing that we lose 25% of the heat through our house through the loft. So if we can insulate our lofts, which is actually a really easy thing to do in a Victorian house, and a basement if you have it, then you're going to be much more efficient in terms of the amount of heat that you're losing. You can use the foam strips or the brush strips on your windows. If you're really desperate, you can install secondary glazing. And that doesn't have to be a permanent solution. You can get secondary glazing packs that are like a vacuum seal that go onto your window. And you can get those from hardware stores. You just kind of heat seal them on with a hairdryer, and then you can take those off in the winter.
The other thing that we do as well is we've got really thick curtains, which we'll just make sure we close. I mean, it's really simple.
Absolutely. Close them when it's getting dark.
Well, look, this leads us to some tips that you've put together for us, Jo. These are really good tips, because your first tip is the boiler upgrade scheme. Tell us about that.
Yeah, if your boiler isn't working very efficiently, then you're going to be spending a lot of money heating your house in a really inefficient way. The boiler upgrade scheme is a government-run scheme that allows you to apply for a grant to upgrade your boiler, or even apply for a grant to move away from a fossil fuel boiler and get money towards a heat source pump or a biomass boiler. So it's really worth checking on the government website to see if you're eligible for that.
OK, perfect. Next, as well, you've got a way that people can check if they're entitled to free or cheaper insulation.
Yeah, so there's the Great British Insulation Scheme, which is a tongue twister, and you can apply. There's an eligibility checker online that allows you to figure out whether or not you can get cavity wall, solid wall, or, you know, loft or basement insulation.
I remember before a certain Mr Cameron abolished it, we had our cavity walls done by the council. I think we paid a minimum fee of £150, it was at the time. Now our neighbours are looking at £3,000 to get the same job done. Finally, if people need a bit of money to help with this, there's also something else they can do, Jo. What have you discovered for us?
So there are lots of grants online, and you don't actually have to just be a homeowner. You can be a landlord, you can be a tenant. But you need to check if you are a tenant, then you need to check with your landlord first. But anybody can apply for these grants online, and they can be up to £1,500 or £3,000, depending on the grants. So.
Wonderful stuff. Well, look, we've got to leave it there. Thank you, Jo. It's a pleasure to see you. I'm sure we're going to be seeing you again soon. That was all our DIY tips. Now, look.